So, let's talk about what happened in the late summer of 2025. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO, held a big summit in Tianjin, China. On the surface, it looked like your standard diplomatic get-together. But if you looked a little closer, it was clear that what was happening behind the handshakes and the photo ops was a whole lot bigger. We're talking about laying the groundwork for a totally new kind of world order. And that's the big question, isn't it? Was this just another summit, another routine meeting? Or were we actually watching the first draft of a new global power structure being written right before our eyes? Well, to figure that out, we've got to dive into what actually went down. Okay, so first, let's set the scene in Tianjin. You have to understand, this wasn't some sleepy little meeting. This was a massive, carefully orchestrated event. And it was hosted by a country that was absolutely determined to project its power and its vision onto the world stage. I mean, just look at the stats. This thing was a heavyweight event. It was hosted personally by President Xi Jinping. It was the largest gathering in the entire history of the SCO, pulling in leaders from more than 20 countries. And that scale alone, that should tell you something. This was about way more than just routine diplomacy. But look, the real story here, the thing we really need to pay attention to, isn't just who was in the room. It's about the agenda that China brought to the table. This was all about pushing a very, very specific vision for how global power should work in the future. And right at the heart of this whole thing is a term you're going to hear a lot, a multipolar world order. Now, it sounds kind of academic, but the idea is actually pretty simple. Instead of a world run by one or two big superpowers, the idea is that power is shared among several major global players. And you really need to get this concept because everything else that happened at the summit flows from it. And this wasn't just some vague idea. They came with a full-on economic blueprint. Just look at these three moves. First up, proposing a brand new SDO development bank to compete with existing institutions. Then, you've got this major push for trade to be done in their own currency, the yuan, which is a direct challenge to the dollar's dominance. And to top it all off, they backed it up by pledging billions in regional aid. This is way more than just policy. It's like they're building the foundations for a whole parallel economic universe. And then, to really hammer this point home, President Xi used some very carefully chosen words. He said, and I quote, "We must oppose bullying countries that use their power to suppress others." Now, in the world of high-stakes diplomacy, language like that is never, ever used by accident. This was universally understood as a direct criticism of the United States. It was a way of framing China's entire vision as the modern alternative to what it calls outdated, Cold War-style power politics? But hold on, China wasn't the only one playing chess here. The summit was a huge diplomatic stage, and you could see other major countries carefully positioning themselves in this new, shifting landscape. The image that probably got the most attention was this one, this show of unity between China's Xi, Russia's Putin, and India's Modi. Seeing these three powerful leaders standing together, smiling, shaking hands, that wasn't just a photo op, that was pure political theater, and it was sending a very deliberate message to the rest of the world. India, for its part, was walking a very interesting line. I mean, this was a big deal, Prime Minister Modi's first trip to China in 7 years, so that alone signals a bit of a thaw, right? He kept his focus on very practical things like peace along their shared border and fighting terrorism. But he also put his own idea on the table, a new civilizational dialogue, which showed that India wants to flex its own cultural and diplomatic muscle, not just play second fiddle to China. But this whole summit wasn't just about politics and economics. China also wanted to show off its tech, and they did it in a way that got everyone talking. I want you to meet Xiao He. So Xiao He was this super advanced, multilingual AI robot that was helping journalists at the media center. But it was so much more than a cool gadget. Think about it. This was soft power in action. It was a very real, very tangible symbol of China's massive ambition to lead the world, not just in geopolitics, but in the key technologies that are going to define our future. All right, so when the dust settled and all the speeches, meetings, and even the robot assistants were done, what does it all really add up to? Let's connect the dots here and look at the bigger picture of why this summit was so incredibly important. You could argue it all comes down to one single number, 10. So why is 10 the magic number? Well, with Belarus officially joining, the SCO is now a bloc of 10 full member states. This organization is getting bigger, and with every new country that joins, its collective power grows. So let's just boil it all down to three huge strategic takeaways. First, China basically locked in its position as the economic powerhouse of this group with its new bank and currency system. Second, these countries are now more aligned on huge issues like security and economics than ever before. And third, what we're really seeing is the rise of a coordinated global south, a whole block of nations that are determined to set their own rules. So when you step back and look at all the pieces, the picture becomes crystal clear. The Tianjin Summit wasn't just another meeting on the calendar. It was a deliberate, calculated, and powerful move to build an alternative global framework, one that is designed from the ground up to be explicitly non-Western. Which brings us right back to that huge question we started with. Are we witnessing the SCO transform from just a regional group into the actual foundation for a new global power structure? Well, the moves they made in Tianjin strongly suggest that's exactly the goal. The only question now is, will it actually become our new reality?